All right, welcome back. One of the most interesting and compelling things about everyone trying to rebuild this roster as we play GM, as we do our mock drafts, is when it comes to the center position. Because as you look at stats and you look at players through this year, how they played in the NFL, a lot of people are really invested in Coleman Shelton not being our center again. I'm not there. I don't believe Coleman Shelton is an all-pro center. He's not Frank Ragnow. He's not going to be Jason Kelsey. He's just an above average guy who's holding it down, but does get pushed back a little bit. But he's an Iron Man. He doesn't miss any snaps. But there's a couple other options out there. And this is not unlike any other year. It's just there's nothing elite out there. I remember bringing this to you guys last year and trying to decipher between Lloyd Cushenberry and Connor Williams and Aaron Brewer and Tyler Biadasz, or Badass as I like to call him. These guys that were free agents, but you don't have that huge free agent class this year. There's really only a couple of free agents, and the only other one people are talking about is Drew Dahlman. And if you actually sit down and watch his tape, he gets blown back like crazy. Like his pass pro is not good. He's a really strong. He's strong. He can get out there on the run too. He can get out there on the second level really well. In fact, I think his run passing grade or his run blocking grade is one of the best in the entire league. So there's pros and cons here, and can a coach help him with his pass pro to get his base, because he gets blown back more than Coleman Shelton. I know that's hard for a lot of people to believe because they just look at the stat box and they look and see, well, look, he's overall graded like one of the top 10 centers, but when you really break him down, he's really elite in the run blocking grade, but his pass blocking grade is severely lacking. He missed significant time this last year with an ankle injury. And then when he did play, his pressures, he had, he played a third as many snaps as Coleman Shelton, but he had less than half as many pressures. So he had 2 sacks allowed this year and 280-something snaps, and Coleman Shelton had, in the pass blocking snaps, 750 snaps and only 3 sacks allowed the entire year. So, I understand Coleman Shelton isn't your all-pro center, but he is getting better. And he did better this year than last year, and it's really only the second year really starting. So there's pros and cons here, and that drives the conundrum. But what we're looking at here, we've gone over this a few times, but I'm taking a different approach on this one. We've got an empty slate here. And after you listen to Ben Johnson talk about that, and we listen to how he has an opportunity to be able to build this thing the way he wants to, especially with the offensive line, he's got a cornerstone piece right here. And he's got a player that's played very well, that's improving, that's, top 14 left tackle in the league on a rookie contract. Basically, I would consider this a prove-it year for Braxton Jones. You can see he's coming to the end of his rookie contract over here. Ryan Bates, I would like to cut him too. Then you really have a fresh canvas here. So you can go into free agency and pick the guys that you want, and you can go into the draft and pick the guys that you want. So first of all, here in free agency, you can see this is last year right here. This is what I kind of compiled together in last year's video for this. And you see Connor Williams and Lloyd Cushenberry were really the ones that set themselves apart because they only allowed a pressure every 46 snaps. Well, you look at Lloyd Cushenberry this year, how he's done since he's gone to Tennessee, and it's been a significant drop-off. And that's one of the things you worry about when a guy goes from one team to a new team. Is he going to adapt, and is he going to translate to his new team the exact same way? We look at Coleman Shelton up here. This is last year with LA, and he was an Iron Man. He played every game. And this year with Chicago, he played every game, and he improved in every aspect. His run blocking grade is a little lower. It probably has to do with scheming and how we did this year in our run game, but his pass blocking was significantly better. Allowed 2 sacks last year, 3 this year, but his pressures came way down from 34 to 26, so that was really good. Well, this year, down below here, you have your key 3 guys that are really the ones that are driving this year's free agency. There's Coleman Shelton, who's turning 29. Drew Dahlman's 26, and Ryan Kelly's 31. A lot of people like Ryan Kelly because he has been a Pro Bowl center 4 different times, and he's been very consistent with the Colts, but he lost his starting job this year. Even when he came back from injury, he lost his starting job. And he was injured for more than half the year, significant injuries, and he's getting older. So do you really want to risk a contract that could turn into a Lloyd Cushenberry or even Drew Dahlman? You see his pass blocking grade is severely weak, but his run blocking grade, like I said, very strong. So overall he has the best grade of everyone, but he's a very weak pass blocking pro. Maybe they can fix that, though. Maybe they feel confident with the new coaching in that they can fix that, adapt him, because he is bigger than Coleman Shelton by a pound, but he looks more muscular and more trimmed as well. He looks like he can handle himself more, but his base isn't handling up as well as it should be. So does Drew Dahlman, if you sign him, you're going to have to sign Drew Dahlman to a 3-year, $36 million contract, and that's pretty similar, actually more expensive than Lloyd Cushenberry. His age, 26, you're going to have to sign him to a long-term contract. Are you going to be eating that contract? Is this the first significantly bad contract that Ryan Poles would be signing? Is he going to put himself into his first bad spot? Well, Nate Davis would be the first one. Is this going to be another Nate Davis? I mean, that's a question you have to ask yourself. Or do you take Coleman Shelton and give him 2 years on $5 million a year, which you can get him at his age and with his limited experience? These are really the only 2 years that he started in the NFL are these 2 years. So he's becoming a starter. Is he ascending enough that other teams are going to overpay him past the $5 million? I don't know the answer to those things, but I think the Bears can retain him and say, look, we like what you started here. We're probably going to draft a center to learn and develop behind you. Your job to beat him out, but we think we're confident in your ability to keep going. Can we depend on you? Come sign for a $10 million contract, 2 years, and be our center. I think that would appeal to him. I think he would like the stability and consistency and drive him to continue to work hard. So there's your free agent options. But the big thing I think here, obviously you're going to have free agency in your guards as well. Trey Smith is the big name, and I hope we can get him. Maybe we re-sign Tevin Jenkins. Maybe, we go get the Lions, Kevin Zeitler. Maybe we go get their free agent, more veteran guard. Those are things we've already covered, but there's a huge opportunity with the draft that a lot of people aren't talking about. So here was our pre-draft process last year. We had Jackson Powers-Johnson and Zach Frazier as our main guys that we really wanted to focus on. Drake Nugent was another option, Cedric Van Pran, Bo Limmer. But you see, when it got down to it, there were some other names that popped up, and Cooper Beebe, Graham Barton were some of the big ones. They didn't play center in college, but their size translates that way. And honestly, this happens every year, but we kind of overlook it a little bit. So I'm going to show from last year's draft. And now you're not going to have guys that translate very often on year one, which is why it's nice to develop them behind someone. Be able to get them reps still. But when you have someone like, Zach Frazier that comes into the league, we saw that with our pre-draft process. You saw it with Jackson Powers-Johnson. Now he didn't even play center. They transitioned him from center to guard in the other direction. But oftentimes you get guys like this. Graham Barton, as we came into the draft, he got selected in the first round. He was the number 1 selected center in the draft last year. 6'5", a little undersized for a tackle, though, even though he played tackle. You can see right there the T. I'll make this smaller. Made T in college. And then here's center, Bo Limmer, Tanner Bortolini, guard Cooper Beebe. I actually projected us taking him as a guard option. Center, Zach Frazier, Cedric Von Pran is the center. You can see drafted in the 5th round, 1st round, 4th round, 3rd round, 6th round, 2nd round. There's no set determinant of where a good player goes. But you just have to look at their metrics, find guys that you really like and how their game translates, and then you can kind of gauge them as you go along. But these guys all graded out a little bit differently. You can see Zach Frazier, Cooper Beebe, Graham Barton, and Bo Limmer really ended up starting most of the year. Tanner Bortolini filled in when Ryan Kelly got injured. And it sounds like they don't even want to extend Ryan Kelly another contract because they're very confident with what they saw in their rookie from last year, 4th round pick, how he developed while Ryan Kelly was out, that they're going to give him a shot to take the job moving forward, which I think brilliant on their part. Good job. But a lot of these guys you can see from college, Zach Frazier started as a left guard and moved to center. I know that's really small in there, but if you can see it, if not, I'll explain it. Zach Frazier started as a guard, last 3 years played at center. Cooper Beebe, he was a left guard his final year, played some tackles sometimes, left guard the year before, left tackle the entire year before, right tackle. So he sprayed all over the offensive line at different points. Tanner Bortolini, same thing. He was really center his last year, but guard the year before, right tackle the year before. And then you've got Bo Limmer, who was a right guard most of college, and then he shifted to center his last year. Left tackle and center. Graham Barton played center his 2020 year, and then shifted over, and then Cedric Von Pran was a center the whole time. So there's no set way. It's more about the size and how they handle themselves at different positions. And most your centers are going to be around, that 300 to 310, 315 pound range. Some of them a little smaller. That's like what Coleman Shelton is. Coleman Shelton is just under 300 pounds. So, and here's the year before, and your center isn't always the biggest brute on the field. Your tackles are typically your big 6'8", 350, 360, 330 pound guys, because they need the brute strength. They need the base to be able to hold off those edge defenders. Your centers are usually more nimble. They're more flexible. They can snap the ball and, dictate the field, but, they can be bigger sometimes. But here's the year before, and I put in here both 2023 season, then 2024 season. As some of them developed, they got more playing time. But you see, Joe Tippmann was the first center off the board that year. He played most of the season as a starter, 14 games. Jarrett Patterson got a lot of starts in for Houston. John Michael Schmitz, who is considered by a lot. I mean, a lot of Bears fans wanted John Michael Schmitz. I remember that from a couple years ago. A ton of Bears fans wanted. I wanted John Michael Schmitz. And then you see this year, more guys got some more reps. Alex Forsyth, Juice Scruggs, who was a guard in college as well. But you see some of these guys. Center for John Michael Schmitz. Olusegun was a center his whole time, but then you can see Jarrett Patterson was a guard his final year. He was a center, shifted out to guard. And then same for Joe Tippmann, guard and center. So it's very common. It's more about the size with some of these guys. 6'6", 317, 6'5", 310. So that's kind of where your center position usually goes. Okay, well, how does that translate to what we're talking about with this draft? Well, here was the centers that are kind of the highest regarded centers. This is from the video we did before, 3 weeks ago about the center position. Bryce Foster has now decided to go back to school, so he's not going into the draft. So you got the other 5, Parker Brailsford, Jake Slaughter, Logan Jones, Connor Tollison. They have all returned to college. We knew that before this video was ever made before. But as I've done the guard and the tackle video, I mentioned in those videos a lot of times how some of these guys might shift in from tackle to guard or from guard to center. That might happen when you get to the NFL level. So that's worth mentioning right here. As you compile all those guys together that might be good fit at guard or center, our options are not limited. We can re-sign Coleman Shelton, and we can even pick a couple of these guys. Find the best guys that fit the line and have them compete for multiple spots and roles. You could take Armand Membou, who is a right tackle, but most have said he should be a guard in the NFL. Draft him. I actually like Armand Membou. I've suggested him several times. You could take Jared Wilson later, and you could take another one later. And then when we went over the video the other day about trading down, I'm always a big advocate for trading down. Call it a weakness of mine. Call me a sucker. But when you've got a team that's got so many needs, and one of those huge needs is the interior offensive line, and you can fix a little bit of that through free agency, but then you've got to hit on these draft picks. And none of these draft picks for center are going to be your first rounders. In fact, your primary center position ones, some people say these are going to creep up into the second, third round. I can see it happening. It happens every year. But you don't have that elite center in this draft. Jared Wilson's probably the best one, but he only played 1 year because he was behind Cedric Von Prawn, so he only played 1 year as a starter, and that's kind of a weakness on his part. Jake Majors has some weaknesses in his game, but he's a really good center this last year for Texas. Had a better year than prior, but still some flaws in his game, so he's probably not going to go in the second round, maybe third round, fourth round. This is kind of a consensus draft position that most people have these guys at. And as you look at these, even the ones you're shifting in, Gray Zabel, who most think will play center, Marcus Embo, who a lot of people think will play guard but could play center as well. I've got Gray Zabel on there twice. I apologize for that. Didn't mean to do that. Charles Grant, who most think will shift to center. These guys, none of these are up in the top couple rounds. So if the Bears use that approach and traded down, and I'm just going to take my example from the mock the other day. Say we trade from 110. This is around the concept that Ashton Genty, and so many fans want Ashton Genty, and I absolutely do not believe the Bears will do that whatsoever because of this primary reason right here. The need we have on the offensive line and how many of them we need, and to get it right and fix it. But say we get this haul from the Chargers, and it's a very adequate trade. To come up from 22 to 10, you could do one of two things. You can give them a first and a second this year and then a higher draft pick next year. So less picks but more value. We can get a first and a second, so 22 and 55, and then maybe a second rounder next year. I'm good with that too. Or the other approach is giving us more draft picks, but less value in them, which is another approach, which the Chargers have a lot of late round picks like we do, and they could shoot this our way. And I wouldn't be opposed to this either, especially with our needs this year and how you can get some value at linebacker, at guard, at center late in this draft. You can do that, running back even. Wide receiver. There's spots that we need where we need to bring bodies in to compete, and it's not like we're getting slugs or scrubs. Like, this is a good year to need picks later in the draft because there's some good developmental players that could work out. So 122, 255, 4, 123, 6, 208, and a future fourth-round pick, and that would equal pretty good value for trading up so they could get Ashton Gentry. Say they wanted to get him above the Cowboys who pick at 12, and they say, we really want Ashton. We're falling, just like a lot of Bears fans have fallen in love with Ashton Gentry. We want him. They're going to do something like this. First, second, fourth, sixth, future fourth, or first, second, and maybe even a future first, if enough value there. And I wouldn't turn that down. I would take that all day. Absolutely take a first next year, especially when we're going to need more line help, left tackle, more help on the defensive line. Absolutely. There's value to be had. So do I think Ryan Poles will trade down? I don't know. If something like this is presented, I would hope he would trade down. But I don't know. I think he really gets focused on his guys, so we'll see what happens. But here's a scenario where this could play out and what it could look like. So we've done our trade down. This is where it gives us value now. So, yes, we're picking later in the first, but there's still a ton of really good players right there at the end of the first we could pick up. You got your Kenneth Grant, you got your Walter Nolan, Princely Uman-Mielen, Jack Sawyer. I mean, there's a lot of defensive linemen right now, right there, which is exactly what we need as a priority in the first round. Then you can still hit offensive line, safety, running back, all these positions, and say we just take this one draft and we just fill these spots to fix the interior or the center where guys can compete for it, or guard position, and we just find depth so that we can have these guys competing for these spots. This is something of what it could look like. So we've done that, and here's bringing our draft board over. Armand Membou, let's say we take him with that first pick in the second, or the first pick of the trade down. So 55th overall, Armand Membou there. Jake Majors, who's projected at 124, say we take him at 123 right there. Addison West, who's projected at 217. Small school, Western Michigan, actually from Illinois. So take him in the 6th round, and I like all three of these players. I would love to bring all three of them in. Here's a little highlight on all three of them. So first, you're looking at Armand Membou, and I'll bring me just off to the side here with Missouri, and you can see all 3 years, solid start of this last year, the best year, no sacks allowed, only 9 pressures on 410 pass block opportunities. He's on Bruce Feldman's freak list, 6'3", 314, so he's more center/guard sized. And if the Bears moved him in to compete at center and guard, and they just take this approach, say we get Trey Smith, say we re-sign Coleman Shelton, and we bring Armand Membou, Jake Majors, Addison West, and then you've got, somebody else that we sign as well. Say you bring Will Fries in, or even re-signing Tevin Jenkins, and you have these guys all competing with a new line coach. This is a way that you develop players that you're actually going to keep on your roster who have high potential. So there's Armand Membou. Here's Jake Majors. Ironman consistency as well at Texas. No sacks the last 2 years. A few pressures, but really good pass blocking pro. Does a good job. They say he's very intelligent as well. I've highlighted him a few times. You can pause that and you read it if you want to, but really solid pass protection and already a decent base for him. And then Addison West, who is projected as a guard center, but he played some tackle as well in Western Michigan, smaller school. You can see 6 years, but the last 3 years started, and then this last year was just a really good year. Only 2 pressures allowed all year, but from a smaller school. So natural anchor strength, exceptional hand placement, advanced mental processing, good player that you could have be a center as well. So, I mean, there's options here. 305 pounds, 6'3", all three of these. I mean, if we took that approach, I would be really happy with the Bears coming out of this draft looking like that. So, I think it's a really solid concept of something the Bears could do to be able to fix the interior offensive line because of where this draft lines up with the strengths of these type of players. Now, this doesn't include all the guards. You still got your Tate Ratledges, which I would love to take. Maybe we take Tate Ratledge at 72 or 41, depending on where he comes up and down the board at the combine. And maybe we take Tyler Booker at 22 or at 39, whatever one falls there. We could take a starting guard here or a starting defensive tackle or a starting defensive end. We could fill all those. Then you still take Armand Membou. Then you could take a running back here, and then you could take a safety here, and then you could take a wide receiver here. I mean, there's so many options in this draft. That's why it's easy to sit here and play hypotheticals and play your mock drafts with this, but then understanding that there's more than just your main three centers. We always talk about Jared Wilson, Jake Majors, and Seth McLaughlin. Jonah Monheim even, because he played with Caleb. He was the left tackle for Caleb, and then he moved in after Caleb left. But his size is the same thing. That's why they moved him into center. He was a tackle. They moved him into center, and he's done very well there this year. You know, there's some things he can improve on his game too, but he's played very well there as well. So, I mean, there's just so many options with this draft. So let me know what you guys think. I am all on board with this. I mean, I'm getting sucked into it again, guys. The whole trade down concept. Even though it doesn't. This time it's not giving up your main quarterback, because where we fall at 10, it's the prime place to trade down for us because of our needs, with how we need nose tackle, how we need another defensive lineman, an edge, how we need a guard, how we need a center, and these guards and these centers are going to fall right here in this position. You know, unless we're taking Tyler Booker, you're not going to have to reach in the first, and I like Tyler Booker, so maybe we do reach in the first, and then we take a nose tackle in the second, and defensive end in the second as well, and then a running back at 72, and there's going to be some really good options there. So I will have my next mock draft out. I usually have that Friday morning, but I wanted to present this center option to fixing the draft, and I think it's a really good way to go about it, especially when there's some high-level prospects that don't fit in a clean position, like Addison West, who played right guard, but he's really built more for center, but he didn't allow a lot of pressure at a small school. Will that translate? Jared Wilson, 94 plays between a pressure allowed. Gray Zabel, same type of thing. Tons of plays between Armand Membou, really solid across the board. So there's so many options here. I love the options the Bears have in this draft. I would love to be in the war room, be a part of that this year, and be able to be a part of the scouting team and say, hey, look deep and go out and watch these guys, in the practices, in the Shrine Bowl, and in the combine, and watch every one of these and get to know these guys, because there are so many options of guys we could take. Anyways, appreciate you guys tuning in. If you haven't hit the like button, please do that. If you haven't subscribed, please do that as well. Let me know your thoughts in the comments, and let's chat about this one. We'll see as we get closer some of the thoughts that come around to it. Appreciate you guys again. Till next time, da Bears, and bear down.